Good morning and a very happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to Review JU, where we have Eric Goldman and myself, I'm Roth Cornet, here with one of the only massively big, hugely huge movie reviews of the year, and that is Wonder Woman 1984, which is coming out on HBO Max and theaters in the coming weeks. Eric, break down those release dates for us.
So beginning December 16th, it'll be opening internationally in many markets, only in theaters, because they don't have HBO Max in almost any other countries, maybe none at the moment. And then on December 25th, it will be in theaters in America, whichever theaters are open and that you're willing to go to. But it will also, in a game-changing thing, it will be on HBO Max the same day. So it's going to get people to check out HBO Max, I'm guessing, who have not yet checked out HBO Max, having this big, bright, shiny movie, which, as you mentioned, is one of the only big movies we're getting this year now, right at the end.
Right at the end, right in the last little window there. And it was a big move on Warner Brothers' part, but that's a different discussion that we have been having right here on SJU and will continue to have on SJU. But right now, let's just talk about the film itself. Eric and I were able to see it. And again, you will be able to see it coming on the 25th, where we will have a spoiler-filled review. This review, however, completely spoiler-free ahead of the release of the film. Come back and join us on the 25th to talk all those beautiful spoilers. But right now, Eric, two things. One, were you a huge fan of the first Wonder Woman? How did you feel about it? And how do you feel the sequel stacked up?
I really dug the first one. I rewatched it actually before this new one. I think I shared a somewhat common thing, which is that the final fight, I don't even want to say the last act, it's really like the final fight was a bit of a disappointment as far as like, oh, it kind of veered into a CG villain that we didn't really care about. But before that, it was a really good movie, really accomplished a lot. That No Man's Land sequence is still, I think, one of the top superhero movie sequences we've gotten this entire century of superhero movies. So really, I think it's a great accomplishment, that one. This new one, I really dug it. I don't think it quite has, and this is a sequel issue, I guess. It can't quite replicate, right, that like, wow, a great Wonder Woman movie thing that the first one did. But I still think they get a lot right. And that it is a very well-timed movie in some respects, as far as messaging and a certain earnestness that I think hits home maybe more right now than it would normally. Reminded me a little bit of Bill and Ted in that regard, Bill and Ted 3. So that was my overall feelings were warmed towards this film.
I agree with you. I want to talk about the messaging specifically, but I think that there's some takes that will be better served in the spoiler review, because to some degree, the messages that are inherent in this film, or feel like they're very much there inherently in the film and in the text itself, are a little bit prescient ahead of this year, because certainly it was shot a while ago, but are more relevant right now than ever. But let's talk about that in broad terms just a minute. I think structurally, what's interesting is that I think structurally this is a stronger film all around. I feel like with Wonder Woman, the highs were slightly higher. And I think to your point, it's hard to replicate just the freshness, the newness. You're going in, you have all these high hopes. And then when it meets and or exceeds those hopes, you're so delighted in that first film. You have like, for me, I saw it with some friends, and it was just seeing her on screen for the first time. And like you said, that No Man's Land sequence was just magic. But also, that one of the challenges inherent, I think, in a lot of the DC characters, but certainly in Wonder Woman, is like, how do you humanize a god? Particularly in this iteration. So what they did for her in that first film so well was made her a fish out of water. She didn't understand the world that she was in, which allowed her to embody a level of innocence in the face of the cynicism, particularly, and the brutality, the needless brutality of that particular war, that worked really well as a contrast and allowed her to have a real arc and express aspects of the humanity, like our desire to be innocent in the world and our desire to have hope and optimism, and the challenge of that, and the true strength that it has to choose. Like she says in the end, I choose to believe in love.
Yeah.
And as corny as that sound, it sounds, it really, when it works, nothing is more beautiful. And I think that's true in Harry Potter, and I think that was true in that film. But had a weak villain, in my opinion, full stop. Had a weak, I do think a weak third act, except for the emotional piece between the two of them. And I did wonder how they were going to be able to recapture that emotional element and to humanize her again. But boy, did they. They snuck it in. They found a way to really humanize her again. We won't say how. We will say in the spoiler review, they managed to move the needle forward on that relationship and still keep it feeling fresh. Amazing, kind of a hard feat. And there's not one, but two compelling villains in this film. Two highly relatable villains that by the end of the film you are scared of and to some degree, but you also care for and you empathize with. I think that's an incredible feat. I really think this is a strong movie. I have some issues that are going to be easier to discuss, like I said in the spoiler version, around Kristen Wiig's, who I love, by the way. Yeah. I just like let me just state for the record, I literally worship her, but there's an aspect of her arc that was underdeveloped at the start, which meant that the conclusion wasn't as powerful as it might have been, unlike our other villain in Max, who I think his arc was incredibly well designed and really, really paid off. If they had just given her a little more at the beginning, the end would have paid off, I think, a little better for Kristen Wiig's character, Minerva. And I also think in terms of the messaging, it's going to be so much easier in a spoiler, but remember that this is a movie that's set in the 80s. It's the era of greed is good. There's a clear message around the idea of greed and the hungry ghost that is the desire for more all the time, and how destructive that is. The unfortunate thing is the lesson is coming from a place of someone who has pure privilege. And I think it becomes a little disjointed for that reason. But overall, very, very, very effective. God, I really think it's a very entertaining movie.
Yeah. I think they took a lot of lessons to heart from the first one. I also realized we should just say for a second that we both saw it at home on screeners, because I think some people will have seen it in the theaters who are reviewing it. And, it is a different experience, obviously. But yeah, I think that they took to heart the fact that in the first movie, you had a very underdeveloped villain who really came in at the end just to say, like, humans suck, I rule. And this time they're like, no, we're going to have two villains, which I know can get a little scary as far as can you balance them both. But they clearly wanted to dimensionalize them both and give them both compelling backstories, explaining who they are, why they are. I do agree with you. And yes, we'll get into details on the other video more, but I do agree that Barbara, who is Cheetah, we can say that because they've even shown her in the trailers. It's like, there's some stuff I wish they did a little differently as the movie went on with her, even though Kristen Wiig is very good in the role. And there's an interesting dynamic with her and Diana. But I did think that ultimately Max Lord, I thought they nailed a little better what they were trying for as far as taking this character and giving him a lot of different nuance and some interesting beats to play. And Pedro Pascal, who's always great, totally different type of role than we've seen him play. And I thought that was really cool, what he was doing in this movie, which is he's playing very against type, but it's a strange role, but it works really well, I think, as it goes on.
Yeah, and I really can't say enough about his portrayal. I just think it's incredible. I mean, we know that he's an incredible actor. I missed his face, you guys. I have missed his face, and it's been very pleasing to see it in this last week. So he's great in the film. I just think it really works. I wonder, and I wanted your take on this as well. I'm glad you mentioned that we both saw it at home. Do you think that there was something missing from the theatrical experience? For me, it was the things that you ultimately miss in a theatrical experience, which was, like I said, I saw the first film with some friends, and we fed each other, like our emotional response to just seeing it happen. Yeah.
These movies are designed, to have those big moments, those big cheers and collective emotional moments. And yeah, there's one in particular, don't want to say the detail, but Diana kind of does something new with her powers. And it's clearly meant to be this great, huge screen, cheer. If you don't cheer out loud, you're still feeling it all together, kind of swept up in a moment. And I still felt this is a great moment. But it was lacking that sort of collective thing, like just even again bringing up No Man's Land, which I don't think any sequence of this movie can quite match, but still watching that in a theater, it was just like, this is great. Like, you know, this is built for this spectacle, the music and being invested in the character all at once. And yeah, these movies are about superheroes, they're about bigger than life characters, so there is something to be said about the big screen for them. It still works. Like, it's still, I think a lot of people are going to watch this on Christmas Day at home, and they will be very entertained by a new Wonder Woman adventure. But yes, in the back of my mind, I was like, man, this would have been cool in the theater. You know, this would have been cool.
I agree. I think when we get a big tentpole movie like this, that's when we really feel the missingness.
Yeah.
Of not having the theatrical experience, because it's made for it.
Yep.
It's built for it. It's built for it. I mean, this is, like I said, the DC characters in particular. It's meant to
mythic.
be these mythic beings that you're seeing on a big screen, and these gorgeous sequences that Patty Jenkins constructed in this film. I mean, there's the one I know you're talking about, like, whoa, that was meant to be seen on a big screen, you know?
Yeah.
And it would have been rad. I don't think it would have had the emotional resonance of the, but it would have in a different way. That line right before it. Oh, God. It really,
we're being very cryptic here. Sorry, guys.
Very cryptic, and I apologize. We will be talking about these things, like I said in the spoiler review, but there is a very powerful and effective, and this is what I think Patty Jenkins really brings to Wonder Woman and Gal in her performance, which I think we should really, really highlight. Like, she was a revelation in that first film. Mm-hmm. And she's fantastic in this role, but she continues to be. She has a moment that is so heartbreakingly human, and then it's immediately followed by all of the majesty that is available in being Wonder Woman. Yeah. And it's so beautifully, like, set against each other, juxtaposed. I mean, I'll use that word like an asshole. And I wish I had seen it on a big screen with some friends where we could grab onto each other.
Yeah. Gal Gadot is great in this role, and it is one where you have to kind of take this amazingly powerful character and still humanize her and contextualize her, and I think she does a really good job of it. But Patty Jenkins, you know, it's funny to think back that Wonder Woman was her first movie of that scale, and now you watch this new one, it's like, oh, she's so assured. I think it makes the choice for her to direct a Star Wars movie feel all the more like, yeah, completely. Watching this and just seeing how at home she is in a movie with a $200 million budget, but also getting you to really care about the characters and love them. And we should also mention, again, in the trailers, Steve Trevor returning in this movie is an interesting dynamic, because they were such a lovable relationship in the first one, and they get to do the reversal here because now he's the fish out of water. Because he's the man out of time. And I think that once again, they have very good chemistry, and you really can quickly click into the two of them together as she's showing him around, 1984 Washington, D.C.
Yeah, their chemistry is just off the charts. And it's really one of those things that I think after the first film, the studio must have just lamented the reality that they were finding themselves in. And they found a cheat in this one that actually, I think it really works. I was worried that it wouldn't, but it truly does work to further the development of her character. The relationship still really works. Like you said, they've reversed it a bit, but but what they bring out in each other, I think, is just this delight, this delight in being alive and the things of Earth. Like, they are able in each other to just find ways to celebrate very basic things about, and then very extraordinary things about being alive, which is really cool. They're also really funny and really quippy together. Mm-hmm. Chris Pine's really good, but the movie, I think, traverses all of those lines really well and balances it, in my opinion, in this film even better than they did in the first film, of action, of heart, of humor, and of thematic threads that have a lot of resonance. Like we were saying, at all times, but in particular today in the year that we find ourselves in.
Yes.
And it's strange. I mean, I got to tell you, I afterwards thought, did they reshoot some stuff?
Yeah.
Because this is like very relevant right now. Yeah, I don't think that's the case. It's just interesting.
No, it is because look, like you mentioned, it's a whole other can of worms. The whole Warner Brothers releasing all of the movies on HBO Max in the next year, and it will still feel like, man, this is a movie. Part of me will lament that we couldn't wait to see this in theaters one day. Again, knowing that some parts of the world people are going to see in theaters, but. It does feel like this movie in particular, maybe in a way that, say, Mortal Kombat will not, when Warner Brothers puts that on HBO Max in a few months, feels like, oh, I get it. I get releasing this movie right now on Christmas Day, feeling like, oh, this can like kind of hit home, and it is very, earnest and almost cheesy about it. But it works. I think it would work no matter what, but especially works because of the situation we're in. And again, that's what made me think of Bill and Ted 3 as well, which is a very heart on sleeve movie that hit home more than it ever. I mean, I think it would have hit home, but hit home more than it ever would coming out in this cursed year, 2020.
I agree with you on both those fronts. Both delightful, both heartwarming, very well worth watching. I think Wonder Woman, as I say, I agree with you on Patty Jenkins, and just she fought for that sequence, the sequence that we're calling this iconic sequence now, the sequence that we are, that I think will go down as one of the more iconic sequences in cinema. She fought for that. And I think that speaks to a level of confidence and assuredness that she just inherently had as a director. However, she's now been at the helm of this and has the further basically justification for her confidence that it worked, to believe in herself and to believe in her instincts. And it really, really shows in this movie. It is very well constructed. I think it's really well balanced. It's full of a ton of heart and a ton of entertainment. Now, remember, this is a big comic book movie. We're not putting this up against, and I hate to say Oscar films because that's so reductive. It's meant to be a big, bombastic piece of entertainment that isn't, especially in terms of, again, DC, not necessarily about nuance.
Right.
I think the messages are fairly clear, and discernible. But with all of that in mind, it is really well done, hugely entertaining, very, very pleasing, and just couldn't come out at a better time. I agree with you. I hope you guys will be able to, if you have HBO Max, find it. And I hope I can too, because I think I do have it. But it's well worth watching. Yeah.
Man, we're recording this on the is it the 14th? All dates collide right now. I'm like, will they make a Roku deal in the next week? I have no idea. We'll see.
I hope so. Yeah. I'll complain about the other deal that they haven't been able to make later, because that's what's been impacting me. But hopefully they'll be able to make all the deals because boy, I'd like everybody to be able to see it if they'd want to. And then to come back and join us to share your spoiler thoughts. We will have lots to say there. I really, really do want to point out that there's kind of an inherent interesting miss, in my opinion, about a very worthy message. But that was impossible for them to avoid with this particular movie. I know that's incredibly vague, so I apologize, and I thank you all for your patience as we talked around the spoiler-filled moments in this film. But I think it'll be worth it, and I think you'll enjoy it. Eric, final thoughts?
No, yeah, I knock it down a little bit for, I wish they'd sort of landed Cheetah's arc a little better, but I do think it accomplishes a hell of a lot. And like you said, it's like it's going in with a certain, this is a bigger than life superhero movie, and there are certain sort of things it's going to hit and tropes it's going to hit. It does it extremely well. It's made with a lot of confidence, and I dare I say heart, that sells a lot and overcomes a couple of obstacles that you'll hear us vent more about those later. But overall, it came out of it very happy.
100% agree, and we will have our nits to pick in the spoiler review, but I think I'll still come out of that ultimately really, really, really enjoying it.
Same.
So we hope you guys enjoy it. We hope you enjoyed this review. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and come on back on Christmas Day and enjoy some spoiler chat with us as well. I hope you're enjoying your holidays right now that are underway and can enjoy the holidays to come and a little well-needed rest after a very, 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 very challenging year. We love you guys. We hope you're well. Please be safe out there. And let's turn on a little more kindness every single day. What do you think? Should we try?
I think it's a good thing to try for, yes.
Let's give it a shot.